Om Ajnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chapter 18 of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describes the cursing of Pariksit Maharaj by a Brahmana boy. The very subject matter is astonishing. Adbhutamana Vishayam. Pariksit Maharaj was protected in the womb by Krishna himself. He was a great pure devotee of Krishna. He was a most pious king. In the terms of ruling according to dharma, he was in the same category as Ramachandra Bhagavan and as his own grandfather Yudhishthira Maharaj. In other words, he ruled the kingdom precisely according to dharma, without any tinge of personal motivation, and he was a great pure devotee of Krishna. So if he was, how could such a righteous king and a pure devotee become the subject of a curse? What bad thing could he do to warrant being cursed? And how could Krishna allow anything bad to happen to his devotee? It is described in this chapter of Bhagavatam that Pariksit Maharaj was once in the forest hunting. So the Kshatriyas, they would regularly go hunting in the forest. There was a purpose to that. It wasn't simply for fun. Some people in the modern age, they go hunting for fun. They think it's fun just to go and kill some animal. But Kshatriyas would hunt in the forest. There were various reasons for their doing so. One reason was to keep down the population of dangerous animals, such as tigers and lions, that would threaten the rishis and brahmanas living in the forest, and possibly enter into human habitations and disturb there also. Now, another reason that they went hunting was to practice killing, because when required, Kshatriyas had to kill even humans to protect righteous persons. It is required to punish unrighteous persons. So a Kshatriya, he cannot be squeamish. Squeamish means when it comes time to do some violent activity, you become afraid. He has to be apparently merciless. That is required. That is the duty of a Kshatriya. People who promote unqualified ahimsa, non-violence, are actually very foolish. If the Indian government was to today declare a policy of total ahimsa, then tomorrow Pakistan would invade. Why doesn't Pakistan invade India? Because there's an Indian army ready to kill. So to kill, you have to be prepared to kill, and the Kshatriyas trained for killing by killing animals in the forest. And certain animals killed in the hunt, they could be offered in sacrifice. Then the Kshatriyas would sometimes Brahmanas also would eat that meat. So Pariksit one day was hunting in the forest, and he became separated from his retinue. The king is hunting in the forest means he doesn't go alone. There are so many with him. There'll be other Kshatriyas with him hunting. So many assistants will be required. But somehow, by fate, Pariksit became separated from his retinue, and he was feeling very thirsty, as you can imagine. If you're out hunting and you're absorbed in the hunting, you may not even notice that you're thirsty. But when you stop, and after all the exertion and going for some hours without drinking, you may, in the heat, you may feel very thirsty. So in feeling very thirsty, in the forest, the king came upon an ashram. When we say ashram nowadays, we usually think of some brick-built building with many people, many sants living there, sadhus living there. But this was a very simply constructed cottage where simply one rishi was living there with his small family. So Pariksit thought he would go there to request some water for drinking. He entered the ashram and saw one yogi deep in meditation, and he wanted to request some water, but the yogi did not receive him. Where someone comes to your home, you should receive him very nicely, and even without asking, you should offer some glass of water. But the yogi, whose name was Shamika Rishi, was deep in trance, and he was not aware that the king had entered his ashram. But Maharaj Pariksit, he thought that the rishi is simply feigning a trance to avoid welcoming himself. He thought that, you see, these brahmanas, they don't like us Kshatriyas, they're always looking down on us and thinking we're inferior. And feeling angry, he left the ashram. Just as he was leaving, he saw there happened to be lying on the floor a dead snake. So the king, with the edge of his bow, he picked up that snake and draped it around the neck of the yogi as a kind of sarcastic compliment. He garlanded him with a dead snake. It's not a compliment, it's actually an insult. And then Pariksit set off for his home. And as he was going, he was thinking, well, maybe the yogi, his mind cooled down, and he thought, well, maybe the yogi was in trance after all. I must have made a great offense by insulting him in that way. And he thought that, well, I must get some sinful reaction I must get some reaction for this sinful activity. He thought, well, whatever sinful reaction is to come, let it come. I deserve it. He thought like that. Now, Shamika Rishi's son had seen this act of the king garlanding his father with the dead snake. So that young boy, his name was Shringi, and he said to his playmates, you see, what is this king? Who does he think he is? Just we're brahmanas and he's a kshatriya. They're just like dogs who protect who are meant to guard our gates. They're not even supposed to enter our homes. He's become so puffed up, though he's just like a dog. He made this analogy. They think these kings think that they're very powerful and they can do what they like. Now let him see the power of the brahmanas, Shringi said. So Shringi, as if to impress his playmates, he touched the water of the river Kaushik, which was flowing nearby, and pronounced a curse on Pariksit Maharaj, saying that this king has garlanded my father with a snake. It is a great insult. So let him die within 7 days by the bite of a snake bird. Then he went back to his father's ashram. And the young boy, he realized he'd done something very wrong. And he cried out in distress. Hearing this cry, his father awakened from his trance and asked his son, what's the matter? The son explained what had happened, and Shamika Rishi was not at all pleased with this childish action of his son. Shamika Rishi told his son that the king is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If the king does not protect the citizens, then chaos will ensue in the state. If the thieves and rogues are not protected, then the whole society will become a shambles. People are able to live peacefully in human society because the king is there to protect them. Furthermore, even though any king is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Pariksit is especially a most pious king and a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Shamika Rishi, in feeling very sorry for this, sent a message to inform the king that this was the situation. Now, how could all this happen? That Pariksit was a great devotee of Krishna. Why should he become, even if he's thirsty, why should he become so angry? And how could he, who was meant to protect the Brahmanas, act so in such an insulting manner to a highly qualified Brahmana such as Shamika Rishi? And how did Krishna, who had protected him in the womb, not protect him at this point? So in this chapter, Krishna is described as Adbhuta Karmana, he who performs wonderful or amazing activity. So it is understood that just as Parikshit's grandfather, Arjunan, was a pure devotee, but he was apparently placed into ignorance so that the Bhagavad Gita could be spoken. So this was a similar occurrence. Pariksit was so tortured by thirst that he became angry, but as soon as he heard of the curse that he would die within 7 days, he immediately resolved to stop all eating and drinking and sleeping right up to the moment of death. He was such a personality that he could just stop eating, drinking, sleeping. Therefore, it is understood that his apparent lapse of character was impelled by the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna because Arjuna was apparently an illusion, so the Srimad Bhagavatam came to be spoken to Pariksit Maharaj, who similarly, briefly, appeared to be an illusion. Now, actual Brahmanas are very powerful. And we see that due to the culture in which Shamika Rishi had raised his son, even the son who was not fully trained or qualified, he was also very powerful. So much so that his curse could have an effect. There's a saying in Bengali that why should a cow mind if a crow curses it? The crow's curse isn't going to have any effect because a crow is a living being in a very sinful condition. But the Brahmana boy was very powerful. Nowadays, I don't know, because the culture of the Brahmanas is not so strong now. But Pariksit Maharaj was a great devotee of Krishna. And he's in an even greater position than that of a Brahmana. Socially, the Kshatriyas are in lower position than the Brahmanas. But spiritually, a pure devotee of Krishna, even if not born in a Brahmin family, is in a more elevated position, even than a great yogi and Brahmana like Shamika Rishi. Later in the 9th canto of Bhagavatam, it is described how Durvasa Muni, who was a great Brahmana and yogi, cursed Ambarish Maharaj, who was a Kshatriya, a Grihastha, and a devotee. But the curse of Durvasa was not able to have any effect because Krishna protected Ambarish. But in this case, Krishna, who had previously protected Pariksit Maharaj, did not protect him. But the purpose of that was that Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken, and the great character of Pariksit Maharaj was demonstrated, inasmuch as despite his being the emperor of the whole world, just immediately he was ready to leave it all. He could have counteracted the curse by his own spiritual power, but he thought, anyway, let it be. He left his home, his kingdom, he turned over the kingdom to his son, and he went to the bank of the Ganga. That is clarified with the Acharyas that refers to the Yamuna, actually. The place where he heard the Bhagavatam is it's in Haryana state at the present time. That place is called Shukatal, and it's fairly close to the Yamuna. At that time it must have been next to the Yamuna, but the Yamuna's path has changed. Yamuna's about 3 kilometers away from there now. So he went there and he sat down on the bank of the Yamuna with the idea, let me sit here and I'll fast and I'll just wait for my death to come. Now, this news spread around the universe. In the modern age, there is much scientific research to find if there is life in other parts of the universe. They're spending billions of dollars to find out about this. We can save the governments billions of dollars. We'll just give them one Bhagavad Gita, and they can take a set of Bhagavatam also, they can afford that. Give them all information about life on different planets. So from all parts of the world, all parts of the universe, many great yogis and sages arrived at the place where Pariksit was fasting, because they understood Pariksit is not an ordinary king. So Pariksit bowed down to them all, and he posed the question to them all, that what is the proper activity for every living being, and especially for a person who is on the verge of death. Who is on the verge of death? You are on the verge of death. Who do I mean by you? Every one of you, and me too. Shall I curse you to die in 7 days? No, but anyway, you are going to die. Not a curse. It's just a statement of fact. We are all on the verge of death. It may come within 7 seconds or less. It may come after 70 years. But we are all on the verge of death. So what should we do? This was Pariksit's question. So there are many sages there, and they were all had their own angles on spirituality. Just like we see nowadays, there are also many spiritual leaders or supposed spiritual leaders, and they all have their own little bit different ideas. So they all had different ideas to suggest. But it just happened that at that time, Sukadeva, what do they call him in Tamil Nadu? Sukadeva? What do they say in Tamil? In Gujarat they say Shuka Rishi, right? Shuka Rishi? Shuka? Subramanya? Shuka Brahma. Shuka Maharshi. Anyway, Sukadeva. Prabhupada calls him Sukadeva. Sukadeva, he entered. He was just wandering and he happened to come to that spot. Means he was guided by Lord Krishna within the heart. Who is Shuka? He's a great personality in his own right. Son of Vyasadeva. He was in the womb of his mother for 16 years. Why? He didn't want to come out. He thought, it's all Maya out there. It's better to stay in here. It's described in the Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto. It's actually a very horrible situation for the child in the womb. All crushed up, with all worms biting, surrounded by all nasty things, blood and all things like that. But Sukadeva thought it's better in here than out there, and he wouldn't come out. And even Vyasa requested him, could you just please get born? Sukadeva said, forget it, then you'll be loving me and I'll just get in Maya. So eventually Vyasa called Krishna from Dwaraka and said, look, can you tell him? So Krishna preached to him a bit, and then Sukadeva agreed, okay, well if Krishna says, I'll come out. So he came out, but he thought, I don't want to stay at home, it's all Maya. His father was Vyasadeva. But Sukadeva thought, all this father, mother, baby, goo goo, gaga, all this kind of stuff, forget it. I'm getting out of here. Not guru, it means that they're patting you on the head, going like this, smiling. He thought, that's all stupid. I just want to be self-realized. I don't want all this stuff. Forget it. So he came out. He said, okay, you asked me to come out. I came out, and I'm going out. Came out of the womb. I'm going right out of the home too. So he wandered off. Vyasa said, well, look, why don't you just stay? At least I can give you upanayana. Become a proper brahmana. He left. So Vyasa was thinking how to get him back. He's self-realized. He has no attachment to family, home, or any such thing. That's all right. But he doesn't realize it, but there's something he has to learn from me. So this isn't all described in Bhagavatam, it's described in other Puranas. That Vyasa arranged for some of his disciples to recite Srimad Bhagavatam on the path where Shuka was walking. And when he heard that being chanted, he became attracted to that. And he thought, what is this? I'm being attracted to something. How can I be attracted to anything? Because I'm beyond all attraction. I'm self-realized. And then he realized that the description of Krishna in the Bhagavatam, this must be attraction on the spiritual platform, because it was impossible that Sukadeva could be attracted to anything on the material platform. So Sukadeva, he went back and studied Bhagavatam from Vyasa, and then again he left. Now Shuka was 16 years old, and his body was very beautiful. It specifically said it was attractive to women. It's described he had beautiful black curling hair and a darkish complexion like that of Krishna. But Shuka, he walked completely naked. Nothing to do with this world. Not even to cover himself. His only contact with the world was that he would stop in the house of a householder once a day, take a little milk. As at the time of milking the cow, he would take a little milk. Then again he would wander off. Completely detached from the world. Now, as he was wandering off, his father was coming behind him to try to bring him back. Getting a little chronologically out of order here, but anyway. And Shuka, on the path, Shuka went past a pond where young girls were bathing naked in the pond. And Shuka just walked past. The girls went on bathing. A few minutes later, Vyasa came, and the girls, in embarrassment, they quickly got their cloth and covered themselves. And Vyasa realized that his son had just gone past, but the girls, they hadn't tried to cover themselves. And he asked the girls why that is so. when my son came past, who is young and very beautiful and naked, you did not attempt to cover yourselves. But when I came, and actually Vyasa is described as being being ugly, actually, black and ugly. Described in Mahabharata as being black and almost fearsomely ugly, and practically of grandfather age to the girls. So why did you? And I'm Vyasa after all. I'm Brahmana of the highest character. So Vyasa asked that why did you cover yourself when I came, and you didn't cover yourself when Shuka came? If anything, it should have been round the other way. So the girls explain that, you see, Shuka, he's completely self-realized. He doesn't make any distinction. But you see, you identify yourself as a householder. So you see, oh, beautiful girl. So for us, in that case, we had to cover us. We had to exhibit some. It's natural that we should exhibit some lajja, some shyness, shame. Now this doesn't mean that Vyasa is some lusty old man. He is the most elevated personality, the guru of all the followers of the Vedas. But because he was in householder life, he acted as a householder. So this incident is not to denigrate Vyasa, but to show the platform of self-realization that Sukadeva was on. Most people could not understand the greatness of Shuka. So, as he was wandering, some local village women and children, they thought he was a madman. And they were following him just to make fun of him. This crazy boy is wandering around naked. They thought it was some joke. But when Shuka just happened, that means impelled by Krishna, he happened to enter the area where Pariksit and all the rishis were gathered. Then all the rishis who were cognizant of physiognomy, they could understand from Shuka's features that he's a great, highly spiritually advanced person. Physiognomy, that's called it says they were Lakshana Vigya, means they understood the science of Lakshana. That may help you to translate physiognomy. Lakshana Vijnana, it's physiognomy in English. There are certain characteristics of highly elevated personalities. The arms are very long, the neck is short, all the features are balanced. Like that. There are 32 symptoms of a Mahapurush. So there were many rishis there. Many of them were actually thousands of years old. Several of them had been present in the pastimes of Lord Ram. Some of them had been present in Vasishta, for instance. He was there. He was present at the time of Lord Rama, and now this was just after the time of Lord Krishna. He was literally thousands and millions of years old. When Shuka entered, all the rishis from all over the universe, who were all much older than him and famous rishis, they all stood to receive him, understanding that he is a greater personality than all of them. And all the village women and children, they just went away. They understood, oh, this is actually a great person. So Shuka was seated, and Pariksit heard, and so many others, they heard also. What did they hear? Srimad Bhagavatam. So these two highly elevated persons were one was the speaker and one was the hearer of Bhagavatam. And we in the modern age are fortunate that by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, we can also participate in speaking and hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. The speaker should be a follower of Sukadeva. That means he should speak the Bhagavatam in the same spirit as Sukadeva spoke it. Sukadeva did not have a violinist and few people playing musical instruments to accentuate the emotions of his speaking. He did not make a collection after speaking so that he could get his daughter married. Shuka spoke out of his ecstasy of love of Krishna, specifically in a manner to benefit Pariksit Maharaj, who wanted to know what is the proper activity for every living being, especially one who is on the verge of death. So the speaker of Bhagavatam should be in the same consciousness of that of Sukadeva, speaking to glorify Krishna and to communicate the message of Bhagavatam to the hearers for their spiritual benefit. And the hearer should be in the same consciousness as Pariksit, eager to hear about Krishna, with no material motivation. Pariksit had no material motivation. He had left behind everything material. So it is not necessary that every hearer leave behind everything material, but he should be in the consciousness of understanding that I am on the verge of death. Whatever I have in this material world is all temporary. So let me hear about Krishna so that I can be attached fully to Krishna. Some speakers on Bhagavatam speak in a manner meant to entertain the hearers. Some speakers on Bhagavatam, they advertise, or it's advertised that by hearing the Bhagavatam you will get the blessings by which your material life will go on well, your business will go on well, and all this kind of thing. Some speakers on Bhagavatam, they try to establish that the message of Bhagavatam is that all is one, that the ultimate truth has no form, qualities, or name. Some speakers on Bhagavatam, they try to explain all the stories in allegorical ways, or they bring their own speculative interpretations to explain the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. So all such manners of explaining Bhagavatam, they cannot give the result of that Pariksit got from Sukadeva. This Krishna consciousness movement has spread all over the world, and people all over the world are now studying Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Not because it was presented, it wasn't that the Srila Prabhupada presented the Gita and the Bhagavatam in a very entertaining manner. He just presented the message as it is. The message itself is extremely powerful. It changes the heart of those who hear. If the Bhagavatam is spoken by someone who is following Sukadeva, and if it is heard by someone who is following Pariksit, then the result will be that just like Pariksit attained full, pure love of Krishna, so the hearer will also attain full, pure love of Krishna, which is the highest perfection for every living being. There's so much to say about this. There's not time to discuss in great detail. It is indeed laudable that in this month, every year, you are arranging such speaking programs. I can request that you take this pious inclination to hear about Krishna by expand on that by taking this Srimad Bhagavatam. Everyone take into your home and study daily. There are literally millions of publications in the world. If they were all destroyed and only Bhagavatam remained, there would be no loss to the world. It would actually be a great gain. By reading so many things, our mind simply becomes more and more entangled in the material world. By studying Srimad Bhagavatam, we become released from this material world and we become attached to Krishna. So we should go on reading and hearing. Shringatang shadhaya nityam grinatascha swacheshtitam kalena nati dirgena bhagavan vishate. Bhagavan Hridaya Vishata. That we should go on hearing daily, regularly, with great faith, the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Shrimritam Shridhaya Nityam Grinata. And we should try to understand that by our own endeavor. That means not just hearing, but actually trying to understand it. And what will be the result of doing so? Within a short time, kalena nati dirghena, within not a long time, Bhagavan vishate hridi, Krishna, Bhagavan, will enter our heart. He's already there, but we don't see him. If we study Srimad Bhagavatam, we will see him. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridiyeshu vilokayanti yang shyama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajan. We worship that original personality of Godhead, Krishna, Govinda, who is seen within the heart by devotees whose eyes are tinged with the salve of prema, pure love. He is seen in his form of Shyama Sundar, which that is not a material form, that is a form of inconceivable transcendental qualities. Hare Krishna. So we'll finish there.